Welcome to this very special edition of the Weightlifting World podcast. Today we're honoured to be joined in person by a man that won the 1996 Olympic gold medal in freestyle wrestling's heavyweight division, and he went on to have a stellar career in pro wrestling with both the WWE and TNA. Welcome, Kurt Angle. Hi, Kurt.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, thank you so much for giving us this time and giving us this interview. So you're in the UK at the moment for TNA's kind of annual UK tour. Just initially, just briefly tell us a bit about that tour, where you're going to be, how people can get involved and so forth.
Well, we're going to be here for about a week. I believe we start in Dublin, Ireland. That's on a Wednesday, this Wednesday, and then we're going to scramble and do, I believe, 7 TVs and 1 pay-per-view in 4 days, I believe. We're going to Manchester, Glasgow. Glasgow is a live TV day. Manchester, Birmingham, London, England, and I believe I might have gotten everything done except for, no, I'm right. I hit everything. But no, it's going to be a great tour. We have a lot of stuff to get done here. There's a reason why we're having so many TVs and a pay-per-view here. This is our first time ever to do that, and also, if we want the big crowds and the rowdy crowds, this is the best place to do it.
Awesome. And I believe there's some much deserved news that you're going to be entered into TNA's Hall of Fame during this particular tour. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that will be the second to last day in London.
Yeah.
I talked to TNA, and TNA discussed it with me, and we were going to do it in Glasgow, but I wanted to do it in the best crowd in the world, and that would be London, England. So to be inducted in the Hall of Fame, in TNA or even WWE, but regardless, being inducted in the Hall of Fame behind Sting is quite an honor. But to do it in front of these fans is going to be great. Yeah,
well, that's awesome, Kurt. Initially, just wanted to talk to you about your philosophies on your physical preparation, your training, your conditioning. Just tell us a little bit about your philosophy on conditioning that you used when you were an amateur wrestler, and how that's changed in your time in professional wrestling.
Oh, I believe my philosophy on training for the Olympics as opposed to pro wrestling is night and day. As far as strength training and the conditioning, 10 hours a day, I could go through it, and I will, but as far as pro wrestling, it's all about maintenance now.
Yeah.
When you wrestle 300 days a year, the last thing you want to do is break your body down with a training session where you're lifting heavy for strength and you're conditioning and doing wind sprints and running 6 to 8 miles at a time, and it's just too much, because in pro wrestling you're going to go in that ring. Me, mainly, I usually do the main events, which are going to be 25 to 30 minutes long. Knowing that I'm going to do that and exert my body, it might be too much to earlier in the day to break my body down before I go into the ring. But as far as Olympic training, that's a different story.
Just quickly, do you find that obviously pro wrestling is about performance, but it's obviously also a lot about aesthetics as well? Did you feel that you looked to move your training away from perhaps so much performance and more towards having the physique and so forth?
Yeah, having the physique, but you have to remember in pro wrestling, guys call it blowing up. And what happens is, if you're not conditioned well enough, you're going to get tired. When you get tired, your performance goes downhill. When your performance goes downhill, you lose your job.
Yeah.
So you do have to be conditioned. And there are guys that have lost their job because they weren't conditioned. So there is a factor, but me trained the way I did, it's like a walk in the park to get through a 1 hour match here. And I'm not being arrogant. I'm just saying I knew how to train, and I knew what I did to train. And nobody's going to get me tired in this business, because I had too much pride of being the best conditioned wrestler in the world. That's why I won. But talking about the Olympic training, I'll give you a day of my training. The morning I went 3.5 hours. I would run 8 miles. Then I would do 15 200-yard hill sprints where I jogged up or sprinted up, jogged back down. I'd do 15 more with a guy on my back. Then I'd run back home 3 miles. I'd get on the Airdyne bike where I'd do sprint and jog for 45 minutes, a minute each. Then I'd jump rope for an hour. Then I'd stretch and get in the sauna. That'd be my morning workout. Afternoon, I would get in, warm up. I would do drilling for an hour. I would live wrestle for 2.5 hours, another half-hour conditioning. Then that would call it the afternoon. That was pretty simple, but it consisted of mainly live wrestling and technique. In the evening was my strength training, which was 2 hours, an hour of plyometrics and stretching. So it was a total of 10 hours a day. I did it every day. I only took 1 day off a month.
Yeah. And what was your strength training like at this time? Were you a big weightlifter? Did you?
Yeah.
What kind of stuff did you, what kind of rep set ranges, what kind of exercises?
Well, you know, guys, before they get ready for a competition, if they had to lose weight or they wanted to taper off and do maintenance training, I didn't believe in maintenance training. I strength trained all the way up to the event. I was a big believer in doing a lot of powerlifting, whether it be bench press, squats, power cleans, deadlifts. I did all of them, and I did them with heavy weight, usually 5 to 8 reps. But I kept my strength on, and the reason I did that is because I didn't weigh 220 pounds. I actually was 11 pounds underweight. I was 209. So I didn't have to cut weight. So I might as well train for strength and keep it on me rather than having to cut back down to the lower weight class and lose everything that I just worked for. I was a big believer in not cutting weight, but getting strength training and staying the weight I was. I was comfortable where I was. Most guys weighed 250, they dropped down to 220. I was 209, I wrestled up at 220, but it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually Sam that's here with us today is one of the athletes that I coach in weightlifting.
Okay.
And I have this kind of conversation with Sam and the other guys about making weight. And I actually have used you many times. I watched one of your previous interviews, the one you did with Ara Video, and you spoke in that about the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I always try and use you as an example of someone that achieved at the highest level, but who bucked the trend of being above weight and always having to
Nobody
cut.
does that, yes. And
Everyone else does that, and you hovered below. And I always say to people, you can come in at your strongest, you can eat up to weight.
Yeah.
You know?
And I felt better, you know, guys that were cutting weight their last 2 months, they were cutting and they were going in the practice room too tired to train. They would just lay on the mat and let the other guy beat the heck out of them. You're not improving, you're not getting better, you're just laying there and sweating. I was a big believer on making the most out of my training and getting the best I could out of it. So I didn't mind, you know, giving up that weight, even though I knew the guys were dropping from 250. By the time they wrestled the following day after weigh-ins, they'd be back up at 250 again.
Yeah.
I was still 209, but I knew that my conditioning would help.
There must be a lot of psychology about fearing that you're not going to make weight. You know, in weightlifting, I think it definitely is, and that must
There
affect
is.
you.
You're right. It's in both sports.
Yes.
Without a doubt. But you know, I literally had guys at the Olympics laugh at me when I weighed in because they saw the scale and they saw the kilograms.
So that changed a few weeks later, huh?
Yeah. So, you know, even though I won a world title the year before, everybody thought I was a fluke. And to repeat and win the gold medal, you know, and weighing under 210, it was crazy.
Yeah.
People just didn't do that.
Yeah. But
But everywhere I went afterward, I tried to enhance the younger guys, the young kids. Listen, you don't have to cut weight. And the coaches be like, what are you saying to them? Well, I'm just telling them the truth. They don't have to cut weight. They can wrestle where they are.
Yeah. I think that's the great thing as well, because when I say it to people, they don't necessarily listen to me, but when you say it, you've the achievement there to back it up.
You've got the weight.
Yeah.
Just give us an idea. You were saying that you would squat, you power cleaned, you deadlifted. Did you ever do that to maximum, and what kind of weights would you lift if you did?
Yeah, you know what? I'll give you an example of what I did. I would, this is crazy. I would take a minute rest. I would start with, for squats, I would start with one plate on each side, 135. I would do as many squats as I could. Usually I did between 120 and 140 without resting, 140 reps. Take a minute rest.
Amazing.
I throw on 2 more plates. It'd be 225. What would that be kilograms? 200 kilograms, I guess?
Yeah,
Just
225.
Okay, yeah.
225 would be
Yeah.
100 kilos. 100 kilos.
Okay, 100 kilos.
pounds.
Then I would squat that as many times as I could. I usually got about 75 reps. Then I took a minute break, three plates on. Got between 40 and 50 reps.
Wow.
And then I'd put 4 plates on and I'd burn it out. I almost get 29, 30 reps. That would be my leg day.
So you'd never take a maximum. You'd never go to a single max. Okay.
No, if I could, I'd say about 700. But I didn't use wraps or belts.
No.
So, and I didn't use a singlet or anything. So I was naturally just a real strong kid. I'm very dense and short. Power cleans, I did max on that. I did 355.
Wow.
For a power clean. I usually worked out with 315 for 5 reps. I'm trying to think of my bench press was pitiful.
Deadlift?
Deadlift was around, my highest was 690. So I was working out with about 550 for 5 reps. But my bench press was horrible. I was probably doing 315 for 5 reps, but that was my weak point. My upper body's always been a weak point.
Do you think you need bench press in freestyle wrestling?
Not as much as you need pulling, you know, because you're always, you know, pulling it, and it's more conditioning. Like, I used to take a rubber band. This meant more to me, but I'd step on the rubber band and I would do underhooks for as long as I could. And what I found is digging underhooks when I wrestled, the more I did that, the more endurance I had, the later in the match I was able to dig and dominate my opponent. But the bench press didn't really help that much. You're right.
But pro wrestling, gotta have a big pair of pecs.
You don't have to do anything in pro wrestling. I mean,
look good though,
basically,
right?
your opponent's doing it for you. If I pick a guy up to slam him, he's helping me. He's jumping himself up on me, and so you don't really have to have strength for pro wrestling. What you do need is endurance, and you need athletic ability
And the physique.
And a good body.
and a great physique. It always helps. Yeah.
So when you were in your amateur days, was there someone overseeing your conditioning, or was there, because you were with Foxcatcher?
Foxcatcher.
Yeah.
Dave Schultz was my coach.
And would he have an influence on your strength and conditioning? Was there, or during your time, were people going to the OTC?
Yeah, we were going to the Olympic Training Center. I'd be out there for 3 months a year, and I'd be with Dave Schultz 9 months a year at Foxcatcher. Dave Schultz was taught by the Bulgarians with the weight training, strength training, also the Slovakians. So he brought that to the table for me. He was more of a wrestling technician, but he wanted to learn everything. He was a library. So I had him, but he got murdered about 8 months before the Olympics.
Sure.
And I was on my own. And I didn't mind because Dave taught me enough that I knew what I had to do to get the job done, thank God. So having Dave in my life for 7 years was a big blessing.
When you were at the OTC, was there carryover between sports? Like, I mean, for example, would you ever spend time with the weightlifters? Would you ever spend time with other athletes?
Train with Mark Henry every other day.
So you'd go and you'd maybe squat with Mark Henry or whatever.
And watching him, he was a beast. But knowing that this guy who obviously is in much better condition now, back then he could do 1 rep, but he had to sit down for 5 minutes.
Sounds like me. Yeah.
And that's what he was trained to do, though. You have to understand. He'd walk up a flight of steps, he'd have to sit down. But he'd go in there and he could deadlift 1,000 pounds. I don't know how much he deadlift, but
it would have been about 960 or something.
Yeah, and I knew he could do that, but he never trained his body for endurance. Not until he got into pro wrestling. Training with him was, eye opener. To see what he was able to do. He was a freak of nature. But there was a spillover of weightlifters and the wrestlers, mainly those two. Because those are the two that spent more time there than anybody else.
And I think there's, in a sense, there is kind of a bit of a brotherhood between the two sports, because I mean, whether you're a wrestler or whether you're a weightlifter, the pinnacle is to win an Olympic gold medal, isn't it, in both sports? So, kind of with that in mind, what do you think that, for those of our listeners that are weightlifters or involved in weightlifting, obviously their goal is to become an Olympic gold medalist. That's what everyone's kind of optimum is. What do you think it takes to be an Olympic champion? What are the undefinables? We've got the training, we've got this stuff. What are the undefinable factors?
Well, there's no one thing. When it comes down to it, I've been with guys that should have won gold medals, but were too lazy. I'll give you an example, and I hate to bring his name up, but talk about a guy that had all the athletic ability in the world that should have whooped my butt. Was Mark Kerr. I don't know if you know who he is.
Of course, it's in the documentary and stuff.
Lazy as lazy can get, and look where it got him, both in amateur wrestling and in MMA. I mean, he should have dominated everybody in MMA, but he didn't want to train. When you have guys like that, you find ways of beating them. and I knew that I wasn't going to be more athletic. I knew I wasn't going to be stronger, but I knew if I got them tired, that's how I was going to beat them.
Yeah.
So you have to find different ways. Mark Coleman was another guy. Strength and conditioning was off the chart. Technique, he wasn't so great. How do I get to him? I'll technique him. So there, I had Kerry McCoy, who was an amazing technician and well conditioned, but his strength was down. He was a 2-time Olympian. I beat him with the strength, know. So you have to find ways of beating your opponents. You have to find out what
you're saying, isn't it?
You
Intelligence.
find their weaknesses.
Yeah.
I didn't have any weaknesses. I was strong all the way through, but I made sure of that.
Yeah, sure. And obviously, another thing that I guess both the sports have had in common is this relationship with the IOC, and obviously wrestling. The wrestling's recent relationship has been
very
well
new relationship. Yeah.
And in the same way that wrestling almost was out of the Olympics and has recently had a reprieve, weightlifting's been in a similar position for a number of years over similar stuff. Poor attendances at some games. There's been drug issues and this kind of stuff. Wrestling has had that reprieve, and just reading some of the stuff. I mean, Lulovich, the head of FILA, was saying that perhaps it almost needs to undergo a makeover, a bit like pro wrestling. In one of his recent statements, he was talking about stuff like staged weigh-ins, walkout music, lighting, visual effects, changing away from singlets and things like that. What's your kind of feeling on that? And also, how can we avoid it happening in weightlifting?
They're way too traditional. I think weightlifting, I think guys show a lot more charisma in there than they do. After a lift, at least they celebrate. Wrestlers seem to just walk over and, obviously they celebrate too, but there's more time for celebration in weightlifting because it's one lift.
Yes, yeah.
And you get attempts, but wrestling, you have one match, and by the end of the match, 10, 15 minutes later,
Yeah. And also in wrestling, I think sometimes it's almost like weightlifting is incredibly climactic, and as much as it can come down to that one last lift, it's like explosive.
Yeah.
You've made it or you haven't made it, and you know whether you've won instantly. But sometimes in wrestling, you're waiting for a referee's decision.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that weigh in on wrestling, but you can always program it toward what pro wrestling is like, but you don't want to lose the traditional thing of what wrestling is really about. Wrestling isn't a sport that should ever be considered being dropped because there are too many countries that are involved. When you look at the pentathlon, the sport that was supposed to get dropped, there's only 17 countries that do it, and only 2 countries actually medal. There's only 2 that dominate in it.
I think the one thing that wrestling didn't have going for it was that the Chinese aren't very good at the sport, whereas in weightlifting, Chinese dominate. And with the amount of money in China, the IOC, the last thing they want to do is lose that support.
No, that's understandable, but there's no reason the Chinese, they've dominated everything else.
Everything else, yeah.
It would only take them 5-10 years to pick up on wrestling, especially with Japan right around the corner.
Yes.
Asia's always a strong, continent for wrestling. I can tell you right now, I've lost some more guys in Asia than I have in Europe. So, there's no problem there. The wrestling, there's 180 countries that actually participate. I don't know, what the whole deal was. I know this. Amateur wrestling has always kind of went to their own beat of the drum, and they didn't show up on the IOC meetings, and they didn't listen to IOC, and IOC would say, we want this, and wrestling would say, well, screw you. We don't need you. They've learned they've humbled themselves and learned that we have to listen to IOC. Now I think there are the same amount of weight classes for women as for men. They wanted that. They wanted different rules and more scoring, and so we just abided by whatever they said. And in the past, we never did because we never thought we'd get dropped. Well, now we know any sport can get dropped, except for track and field. If you're track and field, you're safe. But other than that, I mean, any sport has the ability of getting dropped. So we learned that.
So as you are now, how are you physically in 2014 as we are now?
I'm good. I'm as good as I've ever been. I'm wiser. I feel better. I could be a little leaner, but I feel pretty good. I just, having 5 broken necks in the last 17 years, it takes a toll on your body. But I haven't had any neck issues in the last 8.5 years, so I feel pretty good about it. Yeah,
that's good.
How do you come back from your, just before 1996, before the final, you have this broken neck. How do you summon the belief and the courage to go on and win it?
It's hard,
that?
man. You don't have a choice. You have one chance. There's no guarantee I was going to make the next Olympic team. You have one shot in your life. I actually broke my neck before the Olympics started at the trials. Yeah, and no doctor would pass me to wrestle. And I just had to find a doctor that would, and I eventually found him, thank God. But he said, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to stick you in the neck with 12 shots of Novocaine. You're going to go out and wrestle. An hour later, you're going to be in excruciating pain. Are you okay with that? I said, yeah. So every round, I had 5 rounds in the Olympics, and he was right. I never felt pain like that. But it was worth it. The trade-off was worth it.
Yeah.
Was I risking paralysis? Yeah, but I mean, the trade-off, you have one chance, and that's it. And if you don't bring your A game, and if you decide, well, I'll wait 4 years, well, there's always a young guy hungry upcoming that's going to probably most likely beat you. So
and how, obviously, there was the talk that you may try out for the squad for the 2012 Olympics.
yeah, I tried.
Was
My
that
body broke
something-
down.
Yeah. Was that something where perhaps you still had the mind of a 20-year-old, but the body of not a 20-year-old?
Could I wrestle? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I could still go. But when I started trying to do those 10-hour days, hamstring got pulled, not pulled, torn.
Because you were trying to do
Yeah.
pro wrestling and that at the same time, which is always seems.
And Dixie Carter
obviously, like we've
giving me
seen it with
time
like
off.
King Mo and people like that, where they were trying to learn pro wrestling and do MMA at the same time. It didn't seem to work out.
Yeah, Dixie Carter of TNA limited my schedule so I could train more. But every other week something went on me. Achilles tendon, which my doctor said, why am I Achilles tendon? Like I've been jumping rope and running and sprinting and this and that. Well, you're over 40. Well, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Well, over 40, that's when they start going.
Yeah.
So you're telling me I'm getting old? Yeah, you're getting old. Whoa.
Was he in a cage when he said that?
I wish he was.
News to me.
But yeah, he was right. My body started breaking down. And then a month before the Olympics, the trials, I hurt my knee. I tore my medial collateral ligament. And I just tweeted that day, not going.
Did you have no interest ever in competing at like masters level or like veteran level or whatever?
MMA?
No, in wrestling, freestyle wrestling.
You mean
like
Masters?
age group, no interest
If
in
I'm
that.
not going to Olympics, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
There's no reason. I mean, I'm not saying that's not good.
No.
But
But
when
not for
you
you.
win a world title, a world championship, and Olympic gold medal, you're not going to go in the Masters division and try to win some secondary dream that, it never came true for me as a young person. So I'm going to try to do it now. I'm not putting them down. It's just.
But even if even if you're doing it because you enjoy it still, there's always that fear that someone's going to look at you and go, oh, he's just trying to relive his 96.
Yeah,
six
I think you're right. Yeah.
I can see, we met you a long time ago before at a little signing in London. And I could see then, back then I used to watch a bit of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And recently I saw some of the most ridiculous moonsaults on YouTube that he showed me. And I can hear that, you're a brave man.
Oh, gosh.
Or brave or
stupid.
Brave or stupid, whichever.
Yeah.
When you're crossing yourself before you hit the
Oh
moonsault,
yeah. I do a lot of praying. Tonight on Challenge TV, I did it again. That'll be the last time I do it. Yeah, I hit really hard this time. I thought I broke my ribs.
Shit.
So this was a cage match against Bobby Roode. It airs tonight, but I won't do it again. At least I said that last time. But
So,
and what are your?
so Ron, when I remember in this interview you were saying how you got into this position before you broke your vertebrae, the 2 vertebrae, and you were trying to reach over to stop yourself falling on your back. What's going through your head when you're doing that?
Like it were yesterday.
Are you thinking I'm gonna hurt myself here, or
No.
just don't take the points?
Don't take the points. That's all. And I would think that today. I wouldn't think about my neck. It's all about not getting scored on. And this guy had me locked up, and I went over, and I couldn't get my hand up in time, so I put my head up to try to stop it, and I landed right on my head, and it was crack and crunch, and I still went over, and he still got the points. I was like,
shit.
oh my gosh. So I got up, and my neck I felt like there was gravel in my neck. And what it was is all my vertebrae were broken. And I had three discs sticking directly in my spinal cord, which was risking paralysis because if it got worse, they were sticking in it.
And then you had to fight on, right?
Yeah, I still had to finish the match. I was down by 5 points.
Incredible.
I came back, won 6-5. Then that night I had to carry McCoy in the finals, and I had to beat him, and I didn't even know my neck was broken. I had chiropractors cracking it and trying everything, and I'm like, I'm getting acupuncture and nothing's working. And I went in and I beat him 0-0 referee's decision. And then I had to go to the Olympics and immediately after. And so I went to see a doctor. I went home and saw a chiropractor first. He cracked me again. Then I went and got an x-ray, and the doctor said, your neck's broken. I said, wait a minute, nobody told me that it's broken. I said, what do you mean broken? How do you break your neck? Well, you have 4 broken vertebrae. They're all messed up. And you have these 3 discs that are sticking into your spinal cord, half, like directly, like she showed a x-ray, and they were almost through my spinal cord. Like they speared it. And he said, we need to do surgery on these. We need to get these off your spinal cord. So he said, you need to let your neck heal, no training for the next whatever. And I said, well, I have the Olympics coming up. He said, well, you're not going to be able to train, but you can, we'll take care of you there. We'll stick you in the neck.
Psychology, how when you hear that, you must be thinking, I've lost my chance. How the hell do you win an Olympic gold medal from that?
You know what? You're right, because I went in the wrestling room. I tried to train with Bruce Baumgartner, Olympic gold, 4-time Olympic medalist. And right when we tied up and he put his hand around my neck, I ran out of the room, and it was so much pain, and I just laid there, and I started crying because I knew I wasn't going to medal. And my doctor told me not to go in the wrestling room, and I did. What he did was he said, listen, you're going to be in so much pain. Let's just numb it. Let's just numb it, and maybe you'll forget about it. And he was right. 12 shots of Novocaine all through my neck. When I went out, I was like, I can't feel anything. And my opponents knew I had a broken neck, so they were going after my neck, and the more they reached up, the more I went down. So it actually worked out. Half of them knew, half of them didn't. But yeah, I wasn't supposed to train. I did, and that's when I almost hurt it for good. But as far as the numbing effect, as long as I didn't feel it, I was fine.
Did you ever get any sponsorship from Novocaine afterwards?
I wish I did. I know. Nobody knew about it. I didn't get vocal about it till I wrote my book in WWE. Nobody knew.
Obviously, I'm mindful of time. Obviously, I know you haven't got too long, but just kind of a final question, really.
Yeah.
What are your goals in pro wrestling moving forward now? I guess it's probably fair to say you're in the latter years, probably, of your pro wrestling career.
Yeah.
What are your goals in pro wrestling and in TNA over these last however many years you have left?
I talked about this earlier with another crew of people here for the media. Since the Olympics, I have had a difficult time with success. In other words, since I won a gold medal, nothing has compared to it. Since the day after I won the gold medal, I woke up the next day, I was terrified. What am I going to do in my life? Like, this is all I've known. This is all I cared about. I fell into a major depression for years, and I thought that pro wrestling would pull me out of that. It didn't. Nothing did. I even was going to sign with UFC twice, and I didn't. But whether it had to do with starting dates or whatever it was, signing with TNA instead, which was, I thought was the right move. But, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to deal with my depression. So when I broke my neck the next time in WWE, I started medicating myself with painkillers, and then it got worse, and then it went to benzos, Xanax, and then I went to TNA and I started drinking alcohol with it, and then all of a sudden this domino effect from the depression of not being able to outdo what I did. Nothing was ever good enough, and it got to the point where this past year I went to rehab and got myself clean for the first time in 17 years. Yeah. And it was awesome because, I didn't enjoy my 4 kids and my wife, and and I didn't enjoy pro wrestling. I was always thinking, what do I do to outdo the gold medal? Nothing's working. Now it's like, do what you do. Enjoy it. You're the best, You don't
need to outdo it. You won it.
I know.
You won an Olympic gold medal.
You have to understand.
You can be like Steve Redgrave and win 5.
Let me tell you, man, you get greedy. And when you have that feeling, you want it back again. Why do you think I try it out again?
Sure.
Okay? It's just the depression took over, and it really stuck me good. And now The next 3 years, and I'll be done. The next 3 years, I'm going to have more success because I wasn't enjoying it before. I was doing it because I thought this is gonna be my legacy.
Yeah.
There are people who are gonna remember me for this far more than the gold medal. No, they're not. Nothing's ever gonna outdo your gold medal. That's it. Learn to deal with it and enjoy what you do now.
Yeah.
Now I'm having a blast, and I'm wrestling better than I ever wrestled because I have no more pressure.
Yeah.
I go out there and I enjoy it. I enjoy every match.
Yeah.
You'll watch a match tonight with Bobby. It's one of the best matches I've had in years, and it's like, it's great.
People
man.
are always going to look up to you. You know?
Oh, thank you. But, I've had to make a lot of mistakes to get to where I am right now, but it feels good.
Well, look, Kurt, I know you say we're going to have to wrap up because you can move on to your next interview. But look, thank you so much for giving us this time today.
Thank you.
It means a great deal to us. We just want to say thank you for everything that you've given. I mean, I've been a pro wrestling fan since I was 6 years old.
Awesome,
and,
man.
I haven't.
I love
Good,
it.
I'm glad you admit it.
I love it for everything it is, and I love the real sports as well, weightlifting. But they've kind of been the two passions in my life. And
Awesome.
And for what you've achieved in wrestling, you've always been a huge idol of mine.
Thank you.
You're probably the one pro wrestler he actually likes for what he did in pro
Oh
wrestling.
my God, I had your ringtone on my phone
Yeah,
at school.
and
Absolutely, man.
and also
That's awesome.
also you just you did something incredible in pro wrestling to come in as a rookie and a novice as you were and be so incredible from square one.
Thank you.
If you feel your gold medal was an achievement and you were looking for something else, the enjoyment and entertainment that you provided to
Thank you.
so many millions of people is as easily as big as an achievement.
That feels just as good. It really does. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for the
And
singlet.
Who knows? maybe we can catch up again in the future and talk more
Sure.
at length. I don't know.
Love to.
Okay,
Thanks
you very
again.
much.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you,
You're a
guys.
legend, man. Thank you.